As the Russian Revolution of 1917 dragged on, neighboring Finland worried that it could happen to them. The Finnish government began deporting anyone suspected of being a communist or a socialist. Those deported resettled in the upper Midwest of the United States and in the area of Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. Most joined with the communist parties of both countries. In the United States, they would find themselves again being persecuted, as the Department of Justice conducted raids aimed at arresting and deporting leftists, anarchists, and other radical elements. During this time, Russia was engaged in a fierce civil war that would end in 1921. At the end of the Russian Civil War, a victorious Lenin looked to the area of Karelia near the Finnish border. He ordered the Karelians to harvest the vast timberlands so the fledgling government could make products to trade with the West. The Karelians had fought against him in the Civil War and were bitter about the loss. Defiantly, they told him they did not know how. Lenin then used his connections in the communist parties of North America to recruit displaced Finns to teach the Karelians how to harvest timber. The Karelians had other ideas. In 1922, about 500 Finns from North America, mainly Canada, arrived, eager to teach and help build the Soviet Union. They found life harsh. There wasn't any running water, heat was unavailable, and no electricity, and food was scarce. Somehow, they managed to survive the winter. When spring came, they began holding classes, but the Karelians refused to show up. Undaunted, the Finns began harvesting the timber themselves. The Karelians then sabotaged their equipment, so the Finns had to improvise, designing their own axe in the process. The axe became so popular, they started to export it with the word Canada stamped on the handle in big red letters. Lenin used their success as an example to the rest of the Soviet Union of what was expected of its citizens. Under Stalin, the small community continued to shine, as he too heaped praises on them. He allowed more North American Finnish immigration, surging their numbers to over 10,000 by 1931. Mainly from the United States, the majority became Soviet citizens, swearing allegiance to the new country. The Karelians shunned them and wanted no part of them. After the Soviet invasion of Finland in 1930 and a humiliating defeat, Stalin grew leery of them. He would no longer mention them publicly and started to undermine their community. He allowed them to buy cattle from Finland in 1935 for consumption, but the herd was poisoned and therefore unfit. Stalin accused the town leaders of dragging their feet in the investigation and used it as an excuse to replace the town board with people of his own choosing. Before this, they chose their own leaders. The board's first action was to replace the word Canada on the axe handle with the words product of the Soviet Union. By 1936, the NKVD, Stalin's secret police, began arresting North American Finns who were never seen or heard from again. Vanishings continued for the next several months. The situation became so intense that a large number of North American Finns made their way to the United States Embassy in Moscow, seeking help in getting out of the country. They were denied because they were no longer U.S. citizens. As they left the embassy, they were arrested by NKVD officials, loaded onto trucks, and were never seen again. By 1938, the North American Finn had vanished from Karelia, mainly because an agreement was reached with the new head of the NKVD in the area. They were not to mention who they were or where they came from, and talking about it was strictly taboo. They followed a dream that became a nightmare, and their only escape was to forget who they were. I'm Stephen Picks.